Hey, welcome. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at how we can use the HTML service to create files and upload them to our drive. So we're using the HTML service, create HTML output from file. So using the client-side file with JavaScript code in order to create interactive content. So we've got an input field here and a button. Whenever the button is clicked, then we're getting the content from the input field. Whenever the submit of the form is done, we're getting the contents of that input field file and uploading them to the server using the Google script run. So passing it to a function on the Google script side called adder file, and that adder file is going to be where we're retrieving the data that's sent. And this is the data in regards to the file. We create a blob. We specify which folder we want to drop that file into, and then also we're adding it to a spreadsheet log as well. So whenever the files get uploaded, they're going to sit within the spreadsheet log, and then we're creating the file, returning back a response object back to the client side, and then the client side is using that response object to output the URL of the file that was just uploaded into the message area of the page. So let's try it out. So refresh, I'll clear the console, select the file from my computer, hit open, and then the file is uploaded into the form in the browser. And when we hit add file, that's going to trigger the function to run where it adds the file here, and it also adds it to our Google spreadsheet. So tracks it with the location of the file URL, the file type, and also the file ID. And then that's also adding that selected file into our folder. So let's try another one, and selecting another file and hitting the add file. So that should add it into the spreadsheet whenever the file is uploaded and ready, using the file name and with the path to the file. And as well, you can click that and open up and see the file contents that have just been uploaded. So this is coming from the client side, from your computer, and being set and logged within the spreadsheet and updated and uploaded into your Google Drive. So all of that is coming up in this lesson. So in this lesson, we're going to be showing you how you can upload a file from the client side using the server side script. So coming from the web app, and that's where we're going to set up the doGet function. And what we want to do is we want to create a HTML file, and I'll just call it upload. And that's going to be what we're going to be doing within that file, is uploading the file. So using the HTML service, we're going to create the output from file. And the output file that we're going to be creating is going to be called upload. So that's the one we're working on. So within the web app, when we refresh the page, we're rendering out the contents of upload. So within here, what we want to do is we want to provide the user an opportunity to upload some content. So let's say, for example, they do have a form, and within the form, they've got an input. And the first one can maybe be the file that where they want to upload. So give it a name. So call it up file. And the type of input is going to be a file input. And then just below that, we can have a button, and this button can be a submit button. So do an input and type. So this can be a submit type. Submit button type, and let's add in a value, add file, and close off the form. So save that, and when we refresh the page, we'll have the file, and then we have the option to add the file. So this can be done with JavaScript. And also for the user, let's create a div, and I'll call it class message, so we can provide some message information to the user, such as the file location when it's finished uploading. So within the script, so this is just the JavaScript, where we'll have the file uploader. So we want to upload the file with the submit button. So let's select the submit button, and I'll just call it my form. So using the document query selector, we'll select the form object. And for the my form, we'll add an event listener. And the event that we're going to be listening for is going to be the submit of the form and handling the submission of the form. So this is all just regular JavaScript code. So by default, we're going to prevent the default action. So E. So that will prevent the default action of submitting the form. And we can also select the message. And using the document and query selector, once again, select the element with a class of message. Because we want to have an AJAX type form request, so we don't want the page to refresh, but we want to have the user know that they've submitted it. So let's update the text content, submitted. So see what happens. So do a refresh, add file, form submitted. So it's not changing pages, so that's ideal, and we don't want it to change the pages. So here's where we can have the request to submit the form content, and we can use the Google script handler in order to make the request for the form content. So let's set that up where we're going to do the Google script run, and then with success handler, we're going to output the result. So we'll add, and we'll run a function called myResult. And here we want to have add file. And we'll just call it adder file. So then we want to pass over the file object from the my form. And we'll pass the entire form object over into the adder file. And next, let's create a function called myResult, which will get the response back from the server, and this will be a value. And then here within the message, inner HTML will be equal to val, so we can return back some HTML content. So within the adder file, so let's go over to the Google script side, to the server side. And it's going to be expecting the form contents. So this is going to be the object data. Or actually, let's just call it data, as it's getting the form contents. So we want to make use of the form content and particularly get the file object. So let's get the file from data, my file, and selecting the drive. So I'm going to put in a particular folder within the drive. So using the DriveApp.getFolderById, and we'll select the folder with its ID. So going over to the drive, and we'll create a new folder, and we'll call it uploader. Open up the folder, and let's grab the ID from the folder. And you can do that within the web URL of the folder when you open it. So let's set the ID in the script. And if you don't specify the folder that you want to add it to, it'll just add it into the root drive. And let's, and I'll call it file added. So this way, we're going to use the folder, which has already contained the DriveApp content, and we can create a file. And this file can be created from the my file. So this is actually going to be a blob format that we can use, and then we can just add that file, and we're going to return back whatever we've got for file added, and we're going to get the URL of the file. So within the file, coming from the client side, we need to convert this into a blob, and then using the Google Apps script, we can pick it up as a blob. So right now, this is just submitting that entire form content. So we want to isolate out the input field file that we've got and select that file specifically. So we've got the form submitted. So let's get the file contents, where we're going to be running the file contents. So to get the file itself, we can get from the my form, and we've got an input value. So we can also select this specifically. My upload is going to be using the document query selector, and we'll select the input with the name of file. So input with the name of up file, so we can get that object content. And when we need it here, instead of using the my form, we're going to get the contents of the my file upload. And this is going to be an array, so we want to return back that first item there. So it's going to be getting the actual file object. And we want to convert that file object into a readable file. So this is where we can use the file reader, so file R, and creating a new file reader object within the JavaScript. So once the file has uploaded, file R on load, so once the file has finished loading, we're going to run the function. And within this function, this is where we're actually going to send the content to the Google script. So we need to make sure that the file has finished uploading into the browser, and that's where we're using the file reader. So once the file has finished uploading, we can make an object that we're going to send over to the server side. And then this object can contain some values. And within the object, we've got the file name, and that's going to be contained within the file name. We'll also have the file or the meme type. So set that as the meme type. And from the file itself, we can get the type content. And then the actual file data. And then this is coming from the file reader result value. So let's log out the object into the console, as we did when we're debugging front-end code, just to make sure that the object format is proper that we're sending over to the server side. We'll refresh the page, select a file from the computer, and this is just a JavaScript logo PNG file. I'll clear out the console within the DevTools, hit the add file, and also within the file reader, let's add the read as data URL. And this is going to be whatever we've got the contents for the file. And now we can try that out, where we'll select and refresh the client-side code, select the file from our computer. So this is a JavaScript logo PNG file. And then clicking add file, we've sent it over to the server side. So this is the object data that we've sent over. It's not going to get added yet because we need to deconstruct it as an object, but we are sending over the data to the server side. So that's successful. So now we need to, on the Google script side of things, we need to decode it as a blob. So we've got the file object, and that's contained within the data object. So using utilities, we want to create a new blob. And then once again, the utilities and base 64 decode, and this is the blob object that we want to decode. So this is the data that we have coming from the client side. And this is going to be where we've got the image. So it's going to be data that we're using to decode. So data is being decoded. So we don't need that. So we're doing a base 64 and decoding it as a readable file object. And then also setting the data and what we had for the meme type that's also sent from the client side. And then also the data file name value. And let's just double check that we're sending the content properly. So it's actually going to be file name. So just uppercase that. And the meme type is also coming all from the client side. So let's save that and we'll refresh the code, clear the console, and now when we select the file that we want to upload and we do the add file, looks like we're still throwing an error. And that means that we've still got an error within the script. So when we go back to the code on the client side, we need to actually split the data. So we need to remove out this first part where it's comma separated because the base 64 object is after this. So let's manage that, and going back into the client side, we want to split up, and instead of sending the file data as the result data, we want to split that data into two separate values. So we've got the values, and using the result value and then the string split, we're going to split it into an array. So using the comma separated values, and we only want to send within the blob the second part. So refresh and we'll clear that out. And that just means that the blob wasn't structured properly from the file that we were selecting, and that's why we were throwing the error on the Google script side. So let's try that one more time. And this time we did get returned back the location of the file that's uploaded. Let's refresh the folder, and it looks like we were able to successfully upload the file into the server side. And if we preview it, we can preview the file as well. So updating this, where what we want to do is actually we want to return back an object from the Google script. So instead of just returning back the file name on the success, let's return back a full response object. And we'll construct that so that we can have multiple parameters that we can use. So one of them is going to be the URL that we're returning back, and that's going to be coming from the file added URL. And let's also get the name of the file so that we can post that on the client side whenever it's been updated. So we have the file name, and that's sitting within the data name. And so now let's return back this response object, and we can receive it on the client side where we've got the val, and then I'm going to use the backticks for the template literals and href. So the location where we're sending it is going to be the val.url, so that's going to be the path. So let's add that in with the curly brackets and the $, and set the target to be blank. And then let's add in the name. So it's going to be val, and just making sure that we do have the right format for the object. So it's going to be under val name, that's going to be sent, and then close off the anchor tag. So that now, whenever we upload a file, we should get a hyperlink to the file location. So adding the file, the form is submitted, gives us a link to the file, and that's the file on the server. So we can select, and we can select other files as well. So if we've got a JPEG that we want to upload, so let's add and upload the JPEG. So whenever it's ready, it's going to turn that content into a URL that's going to be clickable. And that's how we can use the Google Web App in order to upload content to our Google Drive and also specify the folder where we want to upload this content into. So now whenever we're uploading, we're tracking all of that information into the folder. And also just to add to this, so let's also select the spreadsheet. And within the spreadsheet where we've got a log, we can also capture that content within the log. So using the Spreadsheet app, and actually this is open by ID. So we need to specify the sheet ID and then get sheet by name. And the name of the sheet is going to be log. So this is where we want to write into. Let's get the sheet ID. So just call it SID in order to add it. And then select the spreadsheet, get the ID of the spreadsheet. Make sure that you do have a sheet called log that you're adding it into. And just use that spreadsheet ID to get the sheet. And then within the spreadsheet object, append row. And then we can add in the row of content that we want to append. So we can have the URL and then also the name of the file that was added. And also let's track in the meme type while we're tracking. So track in all of that information into the spreadsheet. Let's refresh, select a file from the computer and add it. So going into the spreadsheet, so it's now it's uploaded. So it's provided within the spreadsheet the location of the file that we're uploading. And the spreadsheet is also creating the preview of it. And then we've got the file name as well as the meme type. And we can also go into the drive and we can see the new file that we just uploaded. Also, if we want to track the file ID as well, so that can be the file added, and we can get the ID value with the getID method. So that's another parameter that we can track. So let's try that another time, second time, and add the file. So this time we should be tracking ID in column D as well. Whenever the file completes and uploads, it will add it into the spreadsheet. And that was actually needs to have the bracket afterwards. So try that one more time. And this time it should work. Clear out the console. Hit the add the file. And in column D, we should be adding the file ID as well. So go ahead, try it out to get more familiar with how you can use the HTML output from file, communicating from the client side, selecting files from your computer, and then adding them into your Google Drive using Google Apps Script.